So welcome back, and now we're going to talk about uh, a few more related ideas regarding international trade in part two of our topic of gains from international trade. Let's start with sharing screen. And now the determination of a trade pattern, if we look at the why one country is exporter and the other country is importer, we have to look at a few things. One is there is one concept in economics, and we call it as a law of one price. That the price of products is almost equal if there is no transportation cost. So the law of one price states that when a product is traded throughout the entire world, the prices in various countries, net of any specific tax or a tariff, will differ by no other than the cost of transporting the product between countries. So it means that the price of goods are mostly differ from one country to another country. The reason is the transportation cost. Aside from transportation cost plus trade barriers, if there is any import or there is any specific tax related to the trade. Aside from differences caused by these transportation costs, there is a single world price. That's what we call as a law of one price. Now, if you look at these two graphs and you see that in one graph, we are highlighting there is an exports, and in the other graph, we are highlighting there is an import. Now, why there is an import and export? So the reason, if you look at carefully this graph on the left panel, which reflecting the export, the equilibrium price, and equilibrium price is a domestic market price, and represented here by PD, domestic price. So domestic price is at the equilibrium, but the world price, the price PW is a world price, which is higher than the domestic price. So if that is the situation, the manufacturer, the producer loves to sell it at a high price outside the country. And that's why there is an export. So there is an export. So the quantity in this case, the difference between the domestic and the demand and the world demand. So that's the total demand, and supply is going to be higher at the higher price. On the other side, on the right panel, there is reflecting an import. And the reason for import is that if the domestic price equilibrium is higher than the world price, then the consumer loves to buy the things, or the demand for those products is from outside world because the price is cheaper there. And for that reason, we see that there is an import. So import and export is dependent on the price difference between the domestic price and the world price. So the theory that comparative advantage, now the question arises, now the international trade is much more complex as compared to what we are talking in a theory, like two countries are trading, one is exporter and the other is importer, but not now. The situation is complex, and especially through the supply chain mechanism, the products are using the imports from very different countries, and then the exporter country is using those resources from other countries. So one time it is import and then become an export as well. So it's a complex now. So the economist raising this question that the comparative advantage is faded out. The theory of comparative advantage is faded out or obsolete. Comparative advantage is completely determined by forces beyond the reach of a decision made by the private firms and by the public has been discredited. The importance of modern supply chains, economies of scale, and globalization has led to a complex global supply chains, and these supply chains affect the way we think about a comparative advantage and international trade. So comparative advantage and global supply chain or the complex international trade, saying that for many manufacturing goods, production is carried out in a global supply chain, and in such world, there is no longer clear where some products are made. This method of decentralized production indicates two-ways trade in a Canadian economy or in any economy: access to a low price and high quality imports, and access to world market where we can sell our intermediate or the final goods at the highest possible price. So by this way, we also look at that how we can determine this, and the way we can determine this, that whether we have an advantage or a disadvantage for imports and exports or this global supply chain management, we use the word called as a term of trade. Now, what is a term of trade? Means that whether your exports have a more value or imports have a more value. So the term of trade is a ratio of an average price of a country's export to the average price of its imports. So average price of exports divided by average price of imports. Now this ratio is going to change if the price of an import change or if price of an export change, or if both change, then it's going to change the ratio. So if a rise in the price of imported goods with the price of exports unchanged indicates a fall in the terms of trade. So the trade of terms become negative or it starts decreasing. A rise in the price of export goods with the price of import goods unchanged indicates a rise in or favorable terms of trade. So we see here in this graph, like we are able to produce wheat and clothes. So we specialize in making wheat. And with this wheat, we see that we can consume at a point A, which is beyond our production possibility frontier. So it can increase to B if our terms of trade improves. It can go down if the terms of trade deteriorate or decrease. So it all depends on the terms of trade. So international trade involves many countries and many products. So we cannot use the simple ratio of price of two goods to calculate the terms of trade. Again, the complexity of international trade make it not possible to calculate it in very simple ratios. So what we can do is we are using indexes. Indices helping us to figure it out, a combination of many things. So terms of trade is index of export prices, like what we are exporting all over the world, all the goods and services, and divided by the index of import prices, what we are importing from all over the world and all the goods and services, multiplied by 100. So by this way, what ratio we get it is a terms of trade for Canada or for terms of trade of any country. So a rise in the index is referred to as a favorable change in the country's terms of trade if this change is positive. A decrease in the index of terms of trade is called as an unfavorable change, and the terms of trades are quite variable, reflecting frequent change in the relative price of different products. So this is all changing, and this is a graph representing the Canadian terms of trade over a period of from 1960 to 2020. So we see that it's fluctuating all the time. And why? Because the price of commodities, price of goods and services are changing, imports and outputs. So this is all reflected through this, that the price in the world are changing. So terms of trades are sometimes improving, sometimes decreasing. And we see here the jumps. So when the oil prices increase in 70s and in 2007-8, the oil prices jump improves our terms of trade. So this is all what we want to discuss from the gains from international trade. There is another topic we're going to cover related to trade with the next chapter. So I hope you like it, and please subscribe the channel so that it encourages me to produce more and more videos valuable for my students. Thank you.